As the new president of the National Federation of Demolition Contractors, John Lynch could have given his first interview to anyone. He could have gone with a magazine that would have given him an easy ride, just so long as they could secure some advertising. He could have gone with a magazine that would have given him an even smoother ride, just so long as they could secure a media partnership. He did none of those things. Instead, he went with a publication that has been openly critical of the National Federation of Demolition Contractors, its morals, its ethics and its standards over the past few years. And as you're about to hear, that sets the new standard for the way that John Lynch is going about his business. So, before we begin, I wanted to highlight and clarify something. In addition to becoming the NFDC president back in March, you were also recognised as the Demolition Person of the Year. Now, that's an accolade that normally goes to outgoing presidents, not incoming presidents. What did you do to secure it as an incoming president?
I was working on the sale of our property, of both of our properties at Paradise. The next door to us, there was a developer who was going to put a 14-story apartment block upon it. And on the face of it, the board thought it was a good thing. I immediately thought it was a bad thing because it could blight our site. So with the board's approval, I actually brought in some experts to put a formal objection in with the council, and we objected to it, and it got refused on the site on the grounds that it would blight our site. I then made a phone call to the developer next door and said to him, why don't you consider buying our site and doing a redevelopment of the whole lot? In the meantime, we contacted the council, which are the other side of us, and they made us an offer on the site. But I actually then worked on the developer and worked a scheme out that would work for him and work for us with a delayed completion. And obviously he got his planning, and he's meeting all the terms of what I set up. So we ended up with quite a bumper deal on the sale of our old properties. I then, working with the team at Resurgent Mouse, we found a property that had been empty for quite a long time, office space, and obviously nobody wants or didn't want office space because everybody was working from home, and they were getting hit for the rates on it quite heavily. So we secured that at a knockdown price. So we ended up moving into absolutely fantastic offices with capacity for the training to be in the same building as us. And we did quite an exceptional deal that we now are in a position where we've got money out of the deal, and we've also secured excellent, well, you'll see them because I'm going to invite you to our opening on the 30th of June, and you'll see that their purpose, absolutely fantastic for us, and absolutely purpose for the training of the NTDG. I actually then brought some builders in and did some alterations that we needed to do to make them tailor fit our needs. So the board then was quite generous in awarding me the Man of the Year award.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's the good that's the good part, I guess. Your presidency started less than a day after the CMA handed down almost £60 million in fines to 10 NFDC members, although one of them isn't a member anymore. What is your take on that? And I guess that the question that everybody is asking in the industry is, why has the NFDC actually taken no action against the guilty parties?
Right, so we need to actually go back to the formation of the NFDC over 80 years ago, and we were formed with a purpose of improving health and safety, training operatives, and giving a service to our members, which over the 80 years, through the National Demolition Training Group, we've trained numerous operatives. We've written, which you're well aware of, I think you were involved in one with the crushers. We've written guidance notes. We have lobbied the government on various things. And that was the general purpose of why it was set up. We were not set up to police any of the members or to, as far as I'm concerned, that's as far as we go. Yes, these members have been caught by the CMA, and you ask why haven't we done anything about it? Firstly, if we attempted to do anything to the members, we're going to could jeopardize the training and the safety of operatives, etc., which is totally alien to what we actually are trying to achieve. I think looking at what the CMA have done, which is their remit is to find these sort of things out, they have literally dealt with the situation, and we fully support them, and we don't condone anything that those members have done. But the CMA have issued fines, as you rightly said, £60 million. So you're saying, and a lot of those companies have actually had management buyouts in the meantime, etc. So for us to attempt, and to be totally against what we're doing and what we're set up for, to attempt to do anything to those members would be detrimental to what we've actually, the Federation has been set up and has been doing over 80 years. In fairness, you ask what's going to stop them, or you may ask what's going to stop them doing this in the future. If you've had a massive fine, and some of them have incurred £17 million fines, plus the director's been struck off. If you've been dealt a hand like that, you're definitely not, I would have thought anybody is not going to go and do the same thing again. And next time you get quadruple the fine and you get a custodial sentence, I would think. Well, I know you would. So in fairness, they've been heavily hit. The union that we negotiate with was conscious about the CMA investigation and what would happen and what we would actually do to the members, and they're concerned that we don't actually do anything to jeopardize the employment of any of their members. So in fairness, it's probably not what the answer that you want. It's not the answer that you want, but we uphold health and safety, and we are not there to do anything else. The CMA and the Inland Revenue and all these other bodies are there to do the other part, but we are a federation of police force.
I take on all that on board, and whether it's an answer that I agree with or what want really is neither here nor there. I think it's more to do with what the industry wants. But you said that you're not there to police the industry, and I fully accept that. But you do have a site audit scheme, which is policing the industry, and I think where the issue arises, looking outside inward, is you've had a number of members involved in fatal accidents. They've retained their membership. You've had a number of members, 10 in total, have been found guilty of bid rigging and collusion. Their membership remains intact. And yet, if you fail an audit, or if you don't submit a site to be audited within a predetermined timescale, you can have your membership terminated. It seems like death and crime is acceptable, whereas paperwork, not so much. And I'm sure I'm not the only person that's thinking that.
Yeah, and I can see where you're coming from. But the point is, our audit scheme is to make sure that our members have got fully trained staff, CDO operatives, that they've got proper health and safety policy, that they've got insurance, that they've got all the other things that you need to operate properly under CDM regulations. And as far as I'm concerned, we're doing that with the audit scheme. With regard to, yes, there has been some accidents, but you've got to bear in mind, and you might disagree with me here, I can't comment on any accident and I won't comment on any accident that is still under investigation with the health and safety executive. We're in a very dangerous industry. I think the industry is probably a little bit more dangerous, and I looked at this the other day, is the steel erectors, but we're in dangerous. We're doing a lot of the demolition. I would think we're doing, if I had to guess, we're doing probably 85, 90% of the demolition in the country. And unfortunately, one accident is too much. One fatality is too much, and we want to try and eradicate any of that, and that's why we're hell-bent on doing training. You say, why haven't we thrown somebody out for an accident or a fatality? We do an accident investigation once into the company, once the HSE have carried out and the police have carried out their due diligence, and whether they issue fines or whatever, we look into it at that stage. At the end of the day, for us to throw them out is actually counterproductive to what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to achieve safety in the industry. What we actually do is we monitor them a lot more closely, and we issue more audits for them. And they might end up doing 3, 4, 5 more audits a year. So I can see where you're coming from, but I hope you can see where I'm coming from, because it would be counterproductive to throw somebody out if they had an accident. It'd be better to find out why that accident occurred. And I think I spoke to you a little while ago about an accident that happened on the late Paul Johnson's side. He passed away, but he had an operative in a genie boom that went up and got crushed, fell over the levers. Nobody really knows what happened, and got crushed and etc. And he got fined, I think it was £300,000. And I said to you at the time that there doesn't seem to be any way you can actually hire a machine that has got a height restrictor on it, like a lot of our excavators have for working under cables, etc. I noticed the other day I hired a genie boom for a contract, and it was quite a big one. And I noticed, which I thought was brilliant, because I actually went up in the genie boom just to have a look at the job, and I noticed there's a bar on it that if you actually fall over the levers, it stops everything, kills everything. And that's a modification that the manufacturers have done. Now, there's something to be learned, and has been learned, from that fatality. And it was a terrible thing, and I feel so sorry for the families, and they've got my sympathy and the sympathy of the Federation. But something has been learned from that. And a lot of the accidents, we need to learn from them and try and make sure that it doesn't happen again.
To my mind, and I've said this countless times, and I'm not the first to have said it, to my mind, any incident or accident, including fatal accidents, are a learning opportunity. We've had one, and I'm going to come back to this a bit later, but we've had one up at the Longgennet power station, involving one of your members. That really and truly should be the foundation of a set of guidance notes, or a guidance note. Even if it was an A4 piece of paper that said, this is what happened, this is something to avoid. That was 2019, I think. It's 2023 now, and we've not had that from the company involved, and we've certainly not had it from the NFDC either. And there have been other examples over the years. Is that not something that the NFDC should be looking to do?
I'm delighted that you've raised that, because you've raised it with me now, and I will definitely, I think that's a fantastic idea. And to be quite honest with you, I'm open to any suggestions to improve the NFDC. And you've come up with a suggestion there, which I think is a very, very good suggestion. We've had an accident where has recently occurred, and I don't want to talk about it too much, because I don't think it's not for the public domain yet, the accident that everybody knows about, but that we've already carried out, and there's new guidance notes been written on how to try and avoid an accident happening like that. So I take on board what you've said, and I will definitely push that, because I believe that's a very, very good suggestion. But we are actually doing something on one of the other accidents that has happened. And look, we don't want accidents. That's the last thing we want. And I'll just say to you, the last 2 accidents that have occurred, which is very, very unfortunate. I feel so sorry for the families and the friends, and obviously it's tragic. It's an absolutely tragedy to any family to have a bereavement. But the last two accidents that happened have actually happened to two firms that probably I would have picked out of the top 30 safest companies prior to the accident. Why has it happened? We don't know. We won't know until we get the HSE inspector's report, which you know and I know, and unfortunately they don't come as quick as we'd all ask. You know what I'm talking about. We've been waiting years. It's been wait on one accident, and it's been raised in Parliament and everything, but it's not. It hasn't moved any further forward because I believe it's now with the police, and that's only hearsay. I don't know if that's true, but that's gone on a long time, and until we get the reports back, we can't really comment because we don't know all the details. And if it takes the HSE 6 years to prepare it, what chance have we got, with the little bit of information we've got, giving a view on it?
I think we'll come back to accidents in a second, but I want to get back to all things CMA related. Do you think that the 10 guilty companies brought the Federation into disrepute? And based on that answer, do you think that the failure to take any action, and I understand your explanation for it, but the failure to take any action has actually tarnished the reputation of the Federation?
Well, can I answer it another way? The 10 companies that have actually been prosecuted by the CMA, it doesn't seem to have affected them. And I'm going to answer a different way. And I know I don't want to sound like a politician, but those 10 companies, two of those companies, one of them has just won a job, and I only know this from hearsay again. One of them has just won a job in Liverpool for the National Health. One has just won a job for them in for the government in Cardiff. So what I'm asking is, you're asking us that we should be, or asking that we should, or suggesting that we should take some action against them. To be honest with you, I would have thought it's more in line for the clients to take action against them. And it seems that the clients don't seem as concerned about it as frankly, as you do. And a lot of these companies do some absolutely, of those 10 companies, do some fantastic, delicate demolition works. And you couldn't fault them, some of them, on their demolition achievements and on how they actually execute a job. I'm not going to name names, but if you look at some of those, they're experts in particular fields, and they're probably some of the best companies in the country for doing certain jobs. So I would turn it on its head and say, you're asking, why don't we take action? Why don't the clients take action if they feel so strongly about it?
I guess the answer to that, which is nothing to do with the Federation or its membership, but the problem we have now is the fact that the industry is skewed. In order to secure a job for the government or a job for a national power provider or the National Health Service, you need to prove that you have X million pounds at your disposal. And the companies that have got X million pounds at their disposal are the very companies that have been caught out by the CMA. So the way that the construction industry is geared is they will only deal with the very top dogs within the industry. But it's those very top dogs that have been found guilty of price fixing and bid rigging.
But they've been severely punished. I mean, you can't say somebody getting a £17 million fine. And I understand, I don't know if it's right, that receiving a £17 million fine, you can't put it against, if you were earning that sort of money, it'd be some business to do that, but you can't put it against your tax. It's got to be on tax-paid money. So in effect, it's a lot more than £17 million. So they've already had a punishment, and it's like if you get a criminal who's committed a crime, when he comes out, society say that, they've done the sentence, they should let them get on with life. And in fairness, they've been dealt to some very, very severe punishment. and it's sent shockwaves through the whole construction industry. But I could ask you another question. There's a major contractor who got fined nearly £50 million, a construction company, and not so long ago, and yet they're doing major works all over the country. So I just don't understand how a federation can be hounded about not throwing somebody out. What we're trying to do is promote health and safety, and make sure that the employees have got the best training that they can have. Now, I don't understand why we're in the limelight for doling out sentences or expelling people when it's going to be totally against what we're trying to achieve.
I take all that on board. The bizarre thing is, despite all that I've said, I don't actually want to see anybody kicked out. A lot of those companies will have been in the Federation for decades, and they've worked tirelessly, some of them very, very front line of the Federation. But you likened it to a person being charged with a criminal offence. They do their time in prison and they come out, and they then go about their life. That's not strictly true, is it? There will be certain avenues where their criminal record will work against them. There will be certain jobs they'll be unable to apply for and that kind of thing. Is that not the same that we're talking about here?
Well, possibly, but that's not down to us that's down to clients. So if clients are happy to, how can I say to a client, you shouldn't employ Mr. X or the firm X? And they say to me, well, okay, why? Because they've been caught by the CMA and they've been fined. Yes, but this job, we can't see anybody else that is as qualified to do it as them. So, and we want to make sure it's done safely. So how could I say to them, well, I disagree with you, because I have to agree with them, because at the end of the day, all we're interested is in health and safety, and doing a demolition job more professionally. And I believe that NFDC members do that.
You mentioned this earlier about the fact that a couple of the companies involved in the CMA investigation had been subject to a management buyout. You're absolutely right. In fact, a good 4 or 5 have changed management or been a result of an employee buyout or something like that. Explain to me how they retained their NFDC membership when the ownership of the company changed.
Right. So if a company has a management structure that is demolition orientated, and they've been doing demolition. So, for instance, if I went to work for a business that was a member, and the company got sold out, as long as the company retains the same company registration number, the company's house, and providing that the operating staff, the management, is the same, doesn't necessarily mean the managing director and some of the other directors or whatever, but as long as the management structure stays the same, in the articles of the Federation, that's acceptable. And that's written in the articles 80 years ago, so 83 years or whatever. So, in fairness, if, for instance, one of those companies did a management buyout, the same experienced people are running the jobs, and so they would keep their NFDC membership number.
The NFDC has a code of conduct which it talks about quite proudly. Surely all of the things that we've talked about, fatal accidents, collusion and what have you, surely that is contrary to the code of conduct. And you've referenced the fact that the Federation has been going for 83 years, and it can trace its articles of association back that far. We're operating in a different world. Is it not time that the articles and the code of conduct was updated?
I totally agree with you, and our articles do need upgrading. There is problems with upgrading our articles, that we have to have 75% of the members agreeing to the changes, or agreeing or voting on it, and to get that 75% of them to actually vote on it and agree the changes is a very, very, very difficult task. I'm hopeful that David Keane started the process when he was president and did a lot of work on it, a lot of good work, and thanks to him, I would like to try and get it over the line and change certain things, and I'm hopeful that that I'll be able to achieve it. Yes, we do. No company or trade association or anything can work on rules and of 80 years ago. I actually brought in and I lobbied to get this through the board, which I did last year on the second or third attempt, that about our articles say that a company has got to be a director. An officer has got to be a director of the organisation that's got that's got an NFDC membership number. There's got to be a director. Now, my interpretation nowadays of a director is there's directors, there's associate directors, there's all sorts of different directors now because things have modified. Companies have got a lot bigger. And when we had the election for the Midlands and Welsh, we had a particular company who wanted to put forward one of their employees who was an associate director, but he wasn't actually registered at Companies House. And the argument is that a lot of some of the board members say, no, he's got to be registered at Companies House. And I said, it doesn't say that in the articles. Anyway, we've got the change through. So it means now that if somebody else stands as an officer of the Federation and they're a technical director, they don't have to be at Companies House, because a technical director carries a lot of responsibility if you check it by law, in the eyes of the law. He carries as much or nearly as much, and probably not as much, but nearly as much as any director that's registered at Companies House. He's still responsible for the actions of that company.
I feel slightly guilty with another tricky question, because none of the things that we've talked about to date actually happened on your watch. So I do apologise for that. But the NFDC claims to be the voice of the demolition industry, and it advocates, as you've rightly said on a number of times, advocates for health and safety. So why are the various guidance notes now behind a firewall and available only to NFDC members?
If we offer training to every single company in the country who wants to get the courses that we have prepared, and we run and get the certification, etc. We offer that through the National Demolition Training Group. Anybody can join that group and attend any of our courses. And I would encourage anybody, if they're not members of the NFDC, I'd like them to see them as members of the NFDC, but if they're not, I'd encourage them to actually join the National Demolition Training Group, and you can get all the training that you need to make your workforce competent. The reason that we don't give out the guidance notes to everybody is because if we gave out the guidance notes and we're giving out all the training, and at the end of the day, what's the point in being a member and paying us the fees when you can get everything without paying us the fees? So if we do that, then in a few years' time, we won't have any funds or whatsoever to write guidance notes or anything else. So the reason is, come and join us and we will help you with everything that you need. But we can't give everything away.
But that, to my mind, sounds like you're the voice of the industry, but only the bit of the industry that's willing to pay a membership fee. You know, those guidance notes, I mean, bearing in mind all we've said about accidents and fatalities and everything else, and I know you're committed to this, bearing in mind all that we've said there are guidance notes, and I was involved in writing 2 of them. They've since been reproduced, I'm sure. But there are guidance notes there that could potentially prevent an accident, possibly prevent a fatal accident, and they're behind a firewall. That doesn't sound like the voice of the industry as a whole, does it?
No. You and I beg to differ on that. But what I would say is that I'm very keen to get more members in. And I've actually approached quite a few companies that are not in, that I believe should be in, and they're considering it. We will help them reach the standards that we require to join us. We will help them to get the training. We will help them to do anything to come into our federation. And I personally give my undertaking that we will help anybody. And if they want to pick the phone up to me and ask me what they need or don't need, we will give them guidance and help them to come up to the standard. If we just pass out guidance notes to any Tom, Dick and Harry, then the next thing we're going to have is a building, a little building company saying, oh yeah, we're going to do this because we've got these guidance notes. That's how we're writing the method statement, and get on with it. We don't want that happening. We want proper trained people doing it. So it's a bit like issuing instructions how to do something with somebody who doesn't know anything about the industry. So to be quite honest with you, I think it'd be a dangerous tool to put in the wrong people's hands.
You've mentioned membership several times. The membership of the NFDC, as far as I'm aware, is currently at its lowest point in decades. Is that a reflection of the ups and downs that the NFDC itself has had, or is that more a reflection of just a general move away from trade associations in the modern computer-driven world?
Right. Firstly, as I said to you, I will welcome any demolition company who wants to get up to the competency to join us, to contact us, and we will help them. No, the reason that I believe our numbers are down is firstly that we have not been so active on recruitment, which we are now, and I hope whoever's listening to this, please think about joining us, because you will get the benefits out of it. I think a lot of companies over the years, and I know quite a lot of companies who have actually sort of family companies who have got nobody to take on the business and have actually sold out to another company, and then they've amalgamated. I can think of 2 or 3. I can think of some Birmingham contractors that have actually retired and just sold up all their plant and come out of it. If you look at the amount of, from when I first came in to the Federation, it was a lot of family businesses. Now, it's big companies that have bought those smaller companies, and they're doing a lot more demolition. So there's less demolition companies doing the same amount of work, in my opinion. But don't get me wrong, there's a lot of companies out there that I would love to get into our federation. And there's I've actually spoken to quite a few big ones that have got the wrong impression that we won't let members in. And I can assure you that that is a totally wrong impression. If a member passes the criteria, we will let them in, and I will deal with that, and I'll give my pledge on that.
It's an interesting point you make there, because there is, I kind of sit on the periphery of the whole industry, as you know. There is a constant criticism of the NFDC that it is an old boys club, that those that are in stay in, those that are out are kept out. How do you go about convincing those people that may have been rebuffed once or twice in the past that actually we're not an old boys club, all are welcome, so long as you meet our standards? How do you go about convincing them of that?
I think you convince them because I'm actually there now, and I'm actually saying to you, I had 3 knockbacks when I first tried to get in, and I persisted and got in. You don't need to do that now. You need to just meet our criteria, obey our rules, and you can get in. And I can see if somebody's frustrated if they tried to get in and for some reason, and I can't comment on why they didn't get in, because I don't know the particular case, and I don't know all the details of memberships in the past. But going forward, I can assure you that anybody who wants to join and wants to gets up to the standard, we will help them in, and we will help them to join. Firstly, they need to get their operatives certificated, and get CCDO cards for them, and the adequate training that they require. But the NTDG is open to everybody. We'll help them go through all of that. We'll even explain to them the grants that are available from the CITB, etc. So, you know, all I'm saying to you is what's gone on in the past, I've had no control. What's going on in the future, I've got control for a bit, and I will be around anyway. Following me, there is a census by the other presidents that they want to encourage members in, and I can give you my pledge that anybody who feels that they're having a problem joining, they pick the phone up to me, and I will go move heaven and earth to explain to them what they need to do to get in.
Your outgoing CEO, Howard Button, recently stated on the record that he expects the UK demolition industry to retract in the years ahead. First of all, I guess, do you agree? And how do you reconcile that with your ambition to increase membership if the industry is actually shrinking?
Look, everybody's got a different opinion of what's going to happen going forward, etc. in the demolition industry. I do agree with Howard that there will be a retraction in certain things, but there'll be other things where it carries on. So I personally, well, two things. I agree with Howard that it probably will retract a bit, but then on another basis, I think I think that there'll still be a lot of demolition going on, because there's a lot of buildings that have been designed that are not fit for purpose, and that they're not built to last. And the demolition industry is being blamed. It sounds like, when you pick the papers up and you hear what the so-called experts and other federations are saying, that it sounds like the demolition people are just going around with balls and chains and knocking everything down everywhere with no consideration to carbon, etc., etc. Nothing could be further from the truth. We only demolish what has been given planning permission and is told when we're told to demolish. There's a lot of buildings that don't get me wrong, we're the first to say that we want to save and preserve our heritage and buildings and nice buildings. There's a lot of buildings that have been put up that have been built by these so-called experts and governments and have encouraged it, etc., that have got, for instance, cladding that's dangerous. That have, some of the buildings have got concrete cancer from high aluminum cement. There's a lot of things, and a lot of buildings have got to come down. So, in fairness, yes, I hear what Howard's saying in one way, and in another way, I still think there's a lot of demolition to be carried out and carry on with.
I'm really glad you mentioned the subject of carbon, because setting aside the scaffold collapses, the fatal accidents, the collusion, the demolition industry really has come in for one hell of a lot of criticism over the past few months, particularly over embodied carbon. And that criticism has gone without a response from the Federation, from the IDE. Isn't it about time that the IDE and the NFDC basically stood up and reminded architects and academics basically of the contribution the demolition makes, but the fact that the demolition industry is basically clearing up their mess?
You're 100% right. And we've actually got a meeting where Duncan Riddell and Howard Button are attending the House of the Parliament to meet up with the Minister of the government to discuss this, because we're getting branded that we're the villains and going around just knocking buildings down. But we're taking down buildings that have been designed by these people who are actually the ones that are criticising us and saying, oh, yes, we need to alter this, we need to do that. Now, in fairness, I agree. And look, let's be honest about it. You're not going to tell me that any planner is going to allow you to take a building down that's got of interest, or, that is listed or anything else. The buildings that are coming down, and this is where we've got to be careful that we don't, that the government and the planners don't get silly, because if you've got a building in the middle of London and it's a 2-story building, and it's sitting on a prime site in London where there's a shortage of housing, so you say, yes, I'm going to, we're going to convert it into 2 flats. So then you've got to get the all the energy certificates, and you've got to prove to them that you're going to get it up to those to those standards. You've got to then make sure you cover the fire regulations. There's a lot of hurdles you've got to do to alter a building. If you knock that building down, you might get a 3-story or 4-story building on it and create 12 flats. And when you're building them, they'll be built to the specification that covers all the fire regs and the insulation regulations and the efficiency on services on gas and electric or whatever. I mean, gas is being phased out now, but but in fairness, it's not a lot. There's not a lot of joined up thinking from a lot of these people who are criticising the Federation for the carbon footprint, the demolition industry, not the Federation, the demolition industry. But there's not a lot of joined up thinking because they're the ones that have actually created most of all this stuff that we're knocking down. And yet they just seem to sail by and say, oh, it's not us, it's the demolition industry. I mean, you go back to Grenfell, the towers that went on fire. That cladding on there, I mean, surely somebody should have picked up that how dangerous that was. And you talk about, we're saying that we're very concerned about any operative getting injured or being killed. There's people burnt to death in there. And yet everybody just doesn't seem to be bothered about that. Those poor people have got families and friends and children and aunties, uncles and whatever, and grandparents. They burned to death because the building was covered in a product that was so flammable. And to me, it just doesn't make sense.
There's a couple of things. I do have another question lurking in the back here, and we'll probably get to chatting afterwards. But I do want to say thank you for joining us. I'm not an easy person to answer questions to because I have no affiliation or anything like that. I don't really give a toss who I upset. The very fact that you've taken the time to come on and taken a rough ride, I think is credit to you. I'm going to give you an opportunity now, I guess, to really state your case. Let's fast forward to March 2025, when all things being equal, you'll be handing over the reins to a hopefully worthy successor. What would you like to have achieved in your 2 years as president? And I guess, moreover, what would you like your legacy to be? What would you like people to look back and say, John Lynch did that?
I'd like to see, firstly, more members. I'd like to see that we have a properly functioning federation, which, in fairness, the staff we've got are absolutely excellent, and the training staff we've got are excellent. The managerial staff we've got a new CEO coming in, and to be fair, everything is really good. I'd like to see in 2 years' time, I'd like to see the training going up. I'd like to see more companies, not necessarily Federation member companies, but any companies training their operatives more. And look, to be honest with you, nowadays we can do online courses as well as there's some courses we can't do online, but there's online courses. I'd like to see more training going on. I'd like to see more membership. I'd like to see us using the knowledge, etc., of the ISPs. And one of the things that I've actually been working on, and it's coming to fruition now, is that I've actually got a company who's joined us as an ISP. That they're going to be able to give a facility to do terminations of gas, water, and electric on site. So if you get a demolition project, and instead of going to Western Power and going to Severn Trent or going to Thames Water, going to British Gas or whoever, you can go to a one-stop shop there, and they've got the facilities to actually terminate all those services. And I think that is something I've been working on with these people for quite a long time. I know the company. They're a very, very very, very get up and go company. I've had meetings with their managing director, So I'd like to see things that I can actually say, John Lynch brought that in, John Lynch brought that in, John Lynch did this, John Lynch did that, John Lynch, pushed this, John Lynch pushed that. And I honestly believe that we've got people now on the board of the NFDC who will push things forward. I've actually had meetings with the health and safety executive who were actually partnering with seminars throughout the country to talk about the CDM regulations and the responsibilities of everybody all the way down the line. So from the client to the principal designer to the principal contractor, everybody's responsibility and their liabilities. So the HSE are partnering up with us, and we're running these through the country, and hopefully the clients will attend. And instead of saying, well, it's not our problem, it's the principal contractor's problem, they'll say, hang on a minute, we could get prosecuted for that if we don't give them this information or give them that. And I want to get a closer tie, working relationship with the health and safety executive. At the minute, we've actually I've had meetings with them. They're very positive, and they want to see this as well, because they can see this going to help the industry and cut back on accidents, which we're all trying to do. And they see that, and they're working very closely with us. I would like to see, but I'm a little more doubtful of getting the same relationship with the Environment Agency. But the HSE are very positive, and they're very welcome to try and improve health and safety and come along with the NFDC. So there's a lot of things I'd like to see going, and there's a lot of things to get going. There's a lot at the end of that period. I'd like to say the members to say, well, he was a good president. I'd like to see a situation where people compare me to what I believe were the best presidents we ever had: David Sinclair, William Sinclair, David King, who did so much for the Federation and was a real statesman. William Sinclair, David Sinclair, they've been statesmen for the Federation. And to me, if I can get myself to match and be as respected as they are, then in the industry, I'll be more than happy.